The Locked On NBA Top 100 is here. How does Paolo Banchero get into the top 20? Is Franz Wagner still underrated? And what's Desmond Bane and Jalen Suggs' place? And what does that say about the Magic? Today on Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is September 9th. It will be September 10th, 2025. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com, credentialed member of the Orlando Magic media since the 2012 season. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, we're going to dive into the Locked On NBA Top 100, where the Orlando Magic stand, how Paolo Banchero climbs the ranks, why Franz Wagner is still underrated, and what it says about the role players and where they're at. We're going to dive into the whole list, not the whole list, but we'll dive into a good chunk of the list and begin to flesh out what this all means for the Orlando Magic. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. First, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. No matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload, we truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. You can make Locked On Magic even bigger part of your day by being one of our Orlando Magic dailies. That means you're listening 5 days a week. Truly appreciate all of our everyday listeners. Now's the time to get in the habit, build those habits now. That's what training camp is for, because we're 2 weeks away from Media Day and the NBA season is right around the corner. Check it all out. You can download it wherever you download podcasts or find us on YouTube. It's all part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'd be remiss too if I didn't mention in this part of the episode that we're doing a live episode Wednesday at 6 after the Eurobasket games. Join the show live on our YouTube page or on Twitter at OMagicDaily. Bring your questions. I want to answer your Magic questions heading into the season. Check it out again live at 6 p.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday after the Eurobasket games. I'm not one for these lists. I want to make this really clear. I'm not going to sit here and say I am deeply offended that one player is ranked over another. In fact, we kind of buried that hatchet yesterday. If you didn't listen to yesterday's episode of Locked On Magic, be one of our Orlando Magic dailies and listen every day. But if you didn't listen, I had Kuka Heel of Locked On Pistons on, and we broke down where Paolo Banchero and Cade Cunningham, probably two of the most promising young under 25 players in the Eastern Conference, where they stand and why they sort of came in on this list where they came on. I've got the graphics. We're going to put the graphics up on YouTube, but Cade Cunningham came in at number 15, coming off a stellar year with the Detroit Pistons where they broke through, got to the 6th seed. Cade Cunningham is a fantastic player. And as I've said, when we've had this discussion, I'm not going to sit here and tell you Cade Cunningham is a bad player. I'm not going to put him down. He had a fantastic season. He was all NBA last year and deserves where he's at. I'm not even going to be that angry now that I'm actually sitting down looking at this list. I'm not even going to be that angry that Jalen Williams is number 20. I know that there's a lot of Magic fans who feel a certain way about Jalen Williams, but look, Jalen Williams had a fantastic playoffs, fantastic job in the NBA Finals, just won a championship. That has currency. That means something. The Magic got to win a playoff series. So Paolo Banchero on this list comes in at number 23. And I'll maybe pick some nits with Pascal Siakam, who was very good last year, by the way. But I look at this list of 21 to 30. And the way that I sort of look at these lists is more about tiers. Who are the players that you are being grouped with? Who are the players that you're being surrounded by? And you look at this list and you've got some stalwart veterans, James Harden, Pascal Siakam, Jimmy Butler, Trae Young. And then you've got stars who haven't quite figured the whole thing out yet. I would argue, just looking at this list, that Paolo Banchero is in that tier with Jaylen Brown, with Jalen Williams. He's in that tier of young guys who are clear stars and should be. In fact, I would argue, just looking at this list and just trying to separate them out into groups of players, Paolo Banchero is either at the back end of the group that he should be in, or he is woefully underrated. And you've heard me make this argument. I saw some of the comments to our episode yesterday. I didn't get a chance to make this point. But Paolo Banchero is already a lot better than people think. I am willing to say on this episode, freezing cold take me. I'm not a big take guy, but freezing cold take me on this. If it's wrong, which it won't be. Paolo Banchero is already a top 20 player in the NBA. If I'm not mistaken, when I turned my list in, I had him 19 or 20. I had Cade Cunningham right behind him. I do think Paolo is better than Cade. Cade, I think, had a better season last year, but I think this list was supposed to be looking forward to next year. I think Paolo Banchero's in for a humongous season. And frankly, everyone who is asking, when is Paolo going to make the efficiency jump? When is he going to make the on-off number jump? I would tell you he has already made it. I told you that last week on the MVP episode, so let's rehash a lot of those arguments. Go listen to that episode. Made an argument of why Paolo is due to be an MVP candidate. Probably not this season, but very, very soon. Paolo Banchero had an injury last year. Not just a small injury. A torn oblique is everything. It's your core. It's a core muscle. It controls everything. And that injury had massive consequences. For a month in the season, Paolo was out of shape and playing really poorly. It sunk and drained all of his stats. And so we have to look at the periods when Paolo was at full strength. And yes, they are small sample sizes. Yes, they aren't the full season. But Paolo Banchero showed us in those games after the All-Star break that he is ready to take the leap. After the All-Star break, I believe it was about 27 games. Again, smallish sample, a little bit more than a quarter of a season. Banchero averaged 29 points per game, shot 47.3% from the floor and 33.3% from three. He posted a 58.3% true shooting percentage. That put him 8th among players with a usage rate of at least 30%. The comparison is for the full season. For the full season, he had a career best 55.1% true shooting percentage. That's his whole season. That was only better than LaMelo Ball among players with a 30% usage rate. And not to put Franz Wagner down, Franz Wagner was only slightly better at true shooting percentage. Three-pointers weighing that down a little bit, but true shooting percentage takes into account where your points are coming up. Field goal attempts and free throw attempts and points. There's a formula behind it. It's where that comes from. The point being, I think Paolo Banchero has already made a superstar leap that everyone is assuming he hasn't made. There is a narrative out there, an unfair narrative, but a narrative nonetheless, that Paolo Banchero's stats are fluff, that they are just fat. They are just stat padding. Someone's got to score. He has the ball a lot. There are people that argue that he does not have an effect on winning. And they'll point to the on-off argument. The Magic had only a 109.1 offensive rating with Banchero on the floor last year. That's only 0.2 points per 100 possession better. And because people love to compare it to Franz Wagner, the Magic had a 111.8 offensive rating when Wagner was on the floor. That was the team's best among its rotation players. There's the on-off argument always skews in Wagner's favor, plays a lot with the bench. But again, after the All-Star break, things changed dramatically. The Magic had a 113.6 offensive rating with Banchero on the floor after the All-Star break. That was 0.9 points per 100 possessions better than the team's overall average. It was 5th highest on the team, but right behind Franz Wagner. So again, it's a small sample. I will be the first to admit that. But you take that with the 5 games he played before the oblique injury, and you throw out the 17 games that he played immediately after the oblique injury when he was clearly working himself into shape. He spent his All-Star break getting back into better shape. And it hints that Paolo Banchero is ready for a breakthrough. He is ready to take a dramatic step forward. He is ready to be an MVP candidate. He is ready to be an All-NBA player without a doubt, an All-Star without a doubt. All these things that we know watching him every day that he already is. He can have a bigger impact on winning. And adding in Desmond Bane, bringing back Jalen Suggs, having a Tyus Jones off your bench, a better year from Anthony Black, having this team take another year of growth only makes this more certain. So if we're going to freezing cold take anybody, Paolo Banchero at 23 on this list is going to look really, 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 really silly come April, May. Because the only thing missing from Paolo's resume right now is home court advantage in a playoff series win. Narrative's going to change a lot this season. And it's going to change a lot too for Franz Wagner. Why Franz Wagner is still somehow criminally underrated, we're going to get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends at 5 Hour Energy, because it's time to fuel up and turn it up with 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. The grape, ginger, and lime flavored shot brings the iconic taste of a golf course favorite to a non-alcoholic boost. It's perfect for sinking birdies or making great memories with friends. It's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Whether you're out on the course or just need a little extra push to power through your day, 5 Hour Energy Transfusion delivers the clubhouse flavor you love without ever leaving the green. I know we live in Florida, or I live in Florida at least, and the weather gets crazy, but it's always humid, especially this time of year. As we're starting to peak outside, the temperature's starting to come down from the hundreds and 90s a little bit. As we start to peak outside, we quickly learn that it doesn't matter how hot it is still humid and oppressively hot. And just oppressive. It's hard to be outside for very long. So if you need that little kick to get through that back nine, if you need that little kick to get through your workday, that's what 5 Hour Energy gives you. Golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors. The grape, ginger, lime flavor of 5 Hour Energy Transfusion gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without ever leaving the course or chasing down the bev cart. Now you can amp up the fun even more. Just buy, snap, and enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for 2 to any golf tournament in the USA. There are some restrictions on that because there's an asterisk on the copy. Tee up that trip. Visit 5hewin.com. That's 5, F-I-V-E, win.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. It excludes the Masters, of course, and ends October 31st, 2025. Again, 5hewin.com for rules. Typically, when people try to put down Paolo Banchero, they're doing it to put up Franz Wagner. And look, I'm here to defend both guys. I make this very, very clear when I hear people try and pit them against each other and say, oh, no, Franz is actually the best player on the team. And I would argue, like, look, I think their personalities mesh really well. Paolo is the sort of like typical superstar alpha that we remember from the 90s and the 2000s. Franz is very happy being for lack of a better way to phrase it, a Scottie Pippen. He's very, very happy in that role, I think. I think he has less of the instinct of, I'm just going to score here. And that's something you're always trying to get out of him. And maybe that's why Franz Wagner ended up where he ended up on this list, because I do think Franz Wagner is still very underrated on this list. Again, we're going to talk about this in terms of tiers of the players around him. So in our list of the top 100 players, Franz Wagner comes in at 35. He is next to borderline all-stars like Bam Adebayo and Domantas Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox. Been to a few all-star games, but they're not like, oh, these are the creme de la creme. He's alongside Jamal Murray, who is an all-star in all but honor only. He's next to Alperen Şengün, and like, to those who have filled my inbox because I was tagged to the tweet as well as said, like, Alperen Şengün's much better. I agree with you. Alperen Şengün is criminally underrated on this list too. And so it just feels like this group 31 to 40, are just the guys we don't know what to do with some hints of high-level role players, and that's meant in the most respectful way possible for Derek White and Ivica Zubac, who are very, 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 very good, and probably deserve to be a little bit higher on this list as well. To me, I can understand why no one's quite ready to pull the trigger and say, and sorry for the phrasing on that, is quite ready to say, I'm ready to believe that Franz Wagner is better than a Bam Adebayo, a more established player, a player that everyone kind of knows what they're going to get. Having said that, I look at that list, and to me, Franz Wagner is a surefire all-star this year. Like, the Eastern Conference, Magic's supposed to be good. The way the international team is going to be composed, Franz Wagner will be an all-star for the first time this year. He already has shown us that he could take over games and that he can average 24, 25 points per game. And so I'll go ahead and group Franz Wagner and Alperen Sengun. And to my Rockets fans listening, like, I'm not going to argue that Franz is better than Sengun. We're just going to pair them together for now. They're in the same tier. They're in the group of guys who are clearly good enough to be all-stars, but just haven't gotten Alperen got it last year, but they're clearly on the verge of something bigger. And so I find it hard to believe that they're not better. If we pull up the 21 through 30 list, they're not better than Jimmy Butler. They're in that group with Ja Morant, Darius Garland, Trae Young. If not, maybe, certainly with Sengun, I would argue he's better than Trae Young at this point. I'd potentially argue he's better than Jaren Jackson Jr. at this point. I would argue he's better than James Harden. Like, do we want to have the argument about Paolo? I'm not quite there yet with Sengun, but the way he's played at Eurobasket, I think we can. I think they're in that same grouping, that same tier of guys, of players. These are players that are about to hit it big and now have rosters around them and players around them that are going to help them hit it big, that are going to help them take that next step, take that next leap. At the end of the day, what a guy like Franz Wagner is missing, the same thing that Paolo Banchero is missing, and to some extent, the same thing that Alperen Sengun has missed, because I'll bat for Alperen Sengun and say he is criminally underrated on this list. We turned these in before Eurobasket started, so we didn't get to watch Eurobasket, but if you've watched any of Turkey and Eurobasket, they look every bit as good as Germany. The game against Greece on, I believe it'll be Friday, is going to be insane. That is going to be one heck of a basketball game. If you can find a way to watch it, I have my courtside 1891. That's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun day on Friday for basketball before the final on Sunday. Franz Wagner just isn't in front of people. I mean, I don't watch NBA Today, but I had a bunch of people complain to me that NBA Today talked about Eurobasket and didn't talk about tournament favorite and Eurobasket MVP favorite Franz Wagner, tournament favorite Germany, or Eurobasket MVP favorite Franz Wagner once. And that's just the reality of things. So just like Alperen Sengun's about to get an injection of attention because of Kevin Durant joining the Rockets, Franz Wagner is about to get a big boost, just like Paolo Banchero is about to get a big boost from Desmond Bane and the spacing and opportunities he's going to create. In fact, I've gotten accused of this. I'll take it. I'll say that, yes, we've been talking about it too much. It feels like everyone is so focused on what Franz Wagner can't do, and that is his three-point shooting. They're so focused on getting that part better that they miss the forest for the trees. I know I say this every time I talk about Franz Wagner, especially in the context of the shooting, because it is important. It's a swing skill that's going to matter in the playoffs. And as the Magic get deeper and deeper and deeper into the playoffs, that's going to mean a whole lot more. I always say this when we talk about his shooting. Franz Wagner is already a really good player. If he doesn't make a single three-pointer for the rest of his career, that would stink. But if the three-pointer is just not part of his game, he's still going to average 20 points per game, do it efficiently, and be a player that everybody on the floor is worried about at all times because he's just so good at getting to the basket and so smart and methodical in his approach and understands when he doesn't have it and takes that attention, gives it to someone else, and gives that space to someone else. Somehow, for all the attention and love that Franz Wagner gets, people still doubt him in a major way. And maybe that changes if he wins Eurobasket and gets another gold medal in international competition. It's not like he hasn't done that before. It's not like he hasn't shined on the international stage in a big role. It's not like he hasn't done this for the Magic already. But nationally, Franz Wagner is still anonymous. I'm not going to blame the voters. Even the NBA people, I think, underrate what Franz Wagner does. In fact, I'll go ahead and say it. I probably underrate what Franz Wagner does. I'm pretty sure I had him in the late 20s. I don't remember exactly what my ballot was. I apologize for that. I didn't keep it. I did it, sent it in, and that was that. I would argue I underrate what Franz Wagner does because I'm so focused on the big picture all the time too. But the fact of the matter is, Franz Wagner is knocking on the door of stardom. He is not some borderline all-star. He is not a guy who's going to miss the all-star game he is not the token representative like, frankly, Bam Adebayo is. I think I had Tyler Hero ahead of him, but he's not a token representative. Like, no offense to Domantas Sabonis and our friends at Locked On Kings. The Kings aren't a factor. As long as the Magic are competitive in the Eastern Conference, as long as the Magic are championship contenders, put Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner on the All-Star team in ink. And you know what that does? That makes him one of the 30 best players in the NBA. Not where we had him on our list. A big piece of the puzzle to both Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner improving their perceptions around the league is the improvement of the role players. Magic have 2 more players on the list and one who just missed it. We may talk a little bit about him. Let's get to the rest of the top 100 coming up here in just a moment. Obviously, then, the big move of the offseason for the Orlando Magic was Desmond Bane. It was a transformative move. It was the opening salvo of the summer. It was a statement of intent. The Magic acquiring Desmond Bane was 2 things. First, it was adding shooting. It was filling a weakness and maintaining the team's culture. The reason why we didn't have Desmond Bane on the list at the beginning of the offseason, because we didn't think, why would Memphis trade him? He's just so good and so solid for what they do. The reality is Desmond Bane is probably a better fit in Orlando than in Memphis, where he's probably asked to do a little bit too much. There's a little bit more burden sharing now. Now, I will say I have some concerns about the pace, and I think picking up the pace and getting out in transition more will help him and help maximize him, and that's something the Magic are going to have to change your hip. But the threat of Desmond Bane changes everything. And ultimately, what getting Desmond Bane does is it increases the talent level. The fact of the matter is, when we did this list last year, when we looked through these top 100 lists last year, we saw only 3 Magic players. There's Paolo, there's Franz, and there's Jalen Suggs somewhere in the 60s or 70s. If Wendell Carter made it at the tail end, great. If Kentavious Caldwell-Pope made it in the 90s, great. But the Magic lacked a third guy. And if you look through this list, if you look through these lists, and they're all on the Locked On, if you go to Locked On NBA, you can listen to them break down the list there. They're everywhere. If you look at these lists, the top teams, and it's a chicken or egg thing, but the top teams have multiple guys, have 4 or 5 guys. The Thunder have like 5 guys on this list. And we'll get to one of them in a minute. Ultimately, the Magic get in this trade the number 46 player in the NBA. And you look at the players around him, you're looking at guys who are borderline all-stars: Scotty Barnes, Julius Randle, Jalen Johnson, probably will be an all-star. Tyler Hero is this low. I don't know if I would have had him this low. I don't think I did. LaMelo Ball, borderline all-stars. And to some people, Desmond Bane is a borderline all-star, is someone who has been really, really close. And it's just a competitive Western Conference. Maybe the lineups didn't break that way. But there's a reality where Desmond Bane becomes a 3rd Orlando Magic all-star. But you really look at this group 41 through 50, and you see elite role players, guys who just help their teams fit together. I'm not going to include Scotty Barnes and Jalen Johnson in that, but they do that role too. Those are star level players, and I would put Desmond Bane behind both of those guys. But those are the kind of players that I would comp them to, and as far as their role and their impact. You get an Aaron Gordon, Mr. Nugget himself. We love AG here. We don't love OG as much, but we love AG. But putting Desmond Bane in this group with like Aaron Gordon, OG Anunoby is perfect. That is exactly the group he belongs with. Guys who are just somewhat overqualified for their roles, but embrace it and love it deeply. Who perform those roles to their absolute pinnacle. What the Magic hope to get from Desmond Bane is someone who's going to help create space, create freedom, create a chance to exhale, to take some of the scoring burden so that Paolo and Franz, as I've said a million times, aren't just banging their head against a wall. Someone who can have a 25-point night so Paolo and Franz don't have to carry that burden and can make it to the playoffs. And in a playoff game can have that big game that turns a series from a 1-1 series to 2-1 series, which is huge, from a 2-1 series to a 3-1 series. Those are huge. That's what Desmond Bane is. He is not quite a role player. I think that's going to be thought of pejoratively, but he plays a role for this team. He's not a star, but he can be when he needs to be. And those are the kind of players he is grouped with. I think there might be some people who say he could be in the 30s, and I look at the guys in 30s, and I think, frankly, he is put in the exact right spot. I think he's about number 43 in the 40s, early mid 40s. Sorry, he was 46. Somewhere in the mid 40s, I think is the exact right spot for him. And again, you look at who the Magic sent out: Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Cole Anthony. Love those guys to death. KCP is a great dude. Cole is everything. I'm really excited for him in Milwaukee. They're not Desmond Bane. Those 5 first-round picks the Magic sent out, the odds of them being one Desmond Bane are extremely low because the Magic have got a top 50 player in that trade. The last guy to talk about is Jalen Suggs. He does crack the top 100 despite the injuries last year. He's still very well thought of around the league. And if I click the right one, I did not click the right one. Sorry about that. Where is he? There he is. He comes in at number 67. And again, I'm looking at grouping players. And if you look at this group of players, you see where he is considered. Dyson Daniels, a potential all-NBA, all-defensive team player. Jaden McDaniels, another great defender. I might put Jalen Suggs over Jaden McDaniels, but I understand injury concerns and all that. Just ahead of Alex Caruso, probably a good comp for him. Isaiah Hartenstein, another really solid role player there. Jalen Suggs at about in the mid-60s sounds about right. We'll pull up the 50s here and see. Trey Murphy might be a little high on that. Austin Reeves is certainly high. I would definitely keep Mikal Bridges and Norman Powell above him. But that sounds about right. 67 sounds about right. We can argue the Zach LaVine stuff, and Zach LaVine has a different role, and Brandon Ingram has a different role, and Fred VanVleet has a different role, but mid-60s sounds about right. This tier of guys who are all just excellent defensive specialists. And what's left for Jalen Suggs to prove, of course, is that he can be healthy, that he can scale back his usage now that the Magic have 3 guys ahead of them who need the ball. And Suggs has to continue to add that defense. At the end of the day, his value is his defense. And he is a culture-changing defender. You can't help but play hard because Jalen Suggs is held together with scotch tape and super glue all the time. And he does not care. And it sets the tone for everything the Magic do. Suggs can certainly climb this list. I've been big on this. I've been big promoting this. I've been shouting this from the ceilings. Jalen Suggs is an excellent catch-and-shoot three-point shooter. And I think this season he is going to take off. I think this season, with far less on-ball responsibilities beyond maybe bringing the ball up, with far fewer on-ball responsibilities, he is going to be unlocked as an ultimate catch-and-shoot, ultimate 3-and-D player. I am really excited for the potential that Jalen Suggs has to play a role that fits his skills the absolute best. He shot 39% on catch-and-shoot threes in 2024. Before Paolo's injury, he was shooting 42, 43% on catch-and-shoot threes on heavy volume. We've been begging the Magic to get a volume shooter. They got one in Desmond Bane, and they're getting another one in Jalen Suggs. And it's just going to be about making him, which, again, is tricky. But everyone, I think, recognizes the value that Jalen Suggs has when he's healthy and the value that he brings to this Magic team to change and shape their culture. In the end, I'm not one to get angry about these lists because ultimately they are just us guessing. They're just, we try to pull a big enough sample to get rid of outliers and make a representative list. There's a lot of things to be angry about on these lists. But at the end of the day, what we want to see is the team prove itself on the floor. And ultimately, when I scale back and look at these lists, yes, I think Paolo is underrated. Yes, I think Franz is underrated. But ultimately, we have looked at these lists for much of the last decade and just hope to get a player on the back end of the list. Now we're debating whether Paolo is a true superstar and one of the top 20 players in the league. I think he is. We're debating whether Franz can crack that top 22. And we're looking at this list and seeing that the Magic have much more talent than they've ever had, or at least had in a very long time, since Dwight Howard was here. And the fact of the matter is this: perception drives these lists. And the Magic haven't won anything yet. Win a playoff series, I can guarantee Jalen Suggs cracks the top 50. Win a playoff series, Paolo's in the top 20. Franz might be in the top 20 if you win a playoff series. Win a playoff series, Desmond Bane might crack the top 40. Win a playoff series, and Desmond Bane is going to get some all-star buzz or be in position to be the number one seed. Desmond Bane is going to be in the all-star conversation. Winning changes everything. And right now, all we have is the expectation of winning. All we have is that we expect the Magic to win. In 2 weeks, we get to work actually winning basketball games and make all these lists feel kind of silly. Because I think a lot of things on this list are going to be silly, especially where the Magic ultimately end up. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. You, of course, follow me on Twitter at @PhilipR_OMD and on Blue Sky at PhilipRR. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all the fun places you download podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. For the latest on the Orlando, you can also check us out on YouTube. Just search for Locked On Magic. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can find us on Twitter at OMagicDaily. And for even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to check out my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. As always, thank you for your support. You've heard me drone on about the Locked On NBA Top 100 list over the last half hour. Now you get the chance to hear from the NBA experts what they think of the list. Voted on by the NBA host of the Locked On Podcast Network, our Top 100 was formed by experts that cover these teams and players every day. You can find podcasts talking about from every team, essentially talking about this list. It's kind of required. You can find the full list on Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. I've done my reaction. I want to hear yours. Tomorrow or Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, we're going to go live and talk about the Eurobasket games between Georgia and Finland, as well as Germany and Slovenia. Some really good basketball games coming up. We'll break those games down, and I'm going to take your Orlando Magic questions. So join us on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time on the Locked On Magic YouTube page or on X Spaces at @OMagicDaily. We're going to do a live episode, take your questions, get ready for the NBA season because we are just 2 weeks away. It's very, 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 very exciting. But that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic. This has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.